New Year's Eve is a good time to talk about something cool, something breathtaking. Let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Hello, I'm Dr. Sam, this is Dr. Sam's Health, and today is December 31st, 2020, the last day of this weirdest year ever. And I don't want to talk about anything serious, and I don't want to talk about COVID, I don't want to talk about medical or health related stuff. I want to talk about something fun, something cool, something breathtaking. And this something will be a video game called Cyberpunk 2077. I've already made a first impressions video and I said that I was a little bit disappointed with this game originally, but at the end of the day I actually really liked it. And I did an unboxing video of the collector's edition. That figurine is from this collector's edition just a week ago, and I said that likely it will take me a couple of months to play this game, to finish it, in order to form a full impression, the second opinion video for that subject. But at the end of the day, I ended up finishing this game rather sooner. I actually didn't expect it to be so short. And I'm ready to talk about that, and today is the perfect day to do so. As always, a couple of disclaimers. Usually I talk about the fact that I'm a medical doctor, and nothing that I talk about in my videos should be taken as a medical advice. I don't think that this disclaimer is still relevant to this video just because I'm talking about a video game, but what I would like to say here is I'm not a professional video game reviewer. I'm not really a video gamer. I do play video games from time to time. Since I was like a teenager, we had this Atari, Spectrum, then we had PC, and we were able to play some video games, and I find it to be a very interesting way of entertaining yourself rather than, say, watching Netflix. You can play a video game, you can participate in some story, and I've already made a video about the Witcher TV show, books, and the game, actually 3 games, which left a very profound impact on me. And I believe that that series of video games was just amazing because they had a very deep, profound story, some archetypes there. And the same company that made The Witchers announced Cyberpunk 2077. I was very excited because not only I have a lot of trust and respect for the CD Projekt Red, the company that made them, but also I like this genre. I like Deus Ex, I liked all the cyberpunk style science fiction novels, the movies, the video games like Deus Ex. Obviously you're familiar with Blade Runner, with Philip Dick novels, with Altered Carbon, one of the newest amazing TV shows that I really enjoyed. And finally I could have all these immersive stories that I can actually participate in interactively via a video game. So now, when I had this experience, I can finally share my impressions with you. And the last disclaimer, again, I'm not a professional videographer. Today, I would like to talk about this game while having the footage from the original game, the cool things that I've seen in the game presented to you. And I'm pretty sure you don't want to see my mug all the time. I have myself in all of my videos. Today, you will just have my voice and the video game itself, the actual footage from it. So let's dive in and I will let you enjoy it with me. Obviously, with an immersive large game like that, there are lots of things to talk about, but I would like to start with visuals since I'm already presenting you the raw footage of this game. This game looks stunningly beautiful on a high-end PC. Yes, there are moments when the models are not that particularly good, there are lots of glitches, but they will fix them. There are lots of moments when the game looks so impressive, it's literally breathtaking. So this part is complete check. Since it's a role-playing game, definitely the most important items or things to talk about are the character creation and the storyline, but before getting to that, I would like to talk about the game mechanics. There are quite a few things that you can do in this game. You can hack, you can fight, you can shoot, you can drive vehicles, you can interact with characters. And since it's a cyberpunk game, I think that hacking is very important and it's realized in a very decent fashion in this game. I don't have any issues with that. I used Deus Ex as my gold standard. And this game is actually, in my opinion, much better than the classical Deus Ex. It has this mini games, it has this interactive quick hacking. So The game is very nice. You can actually have the whole playthrough when you just use hacking for solving all kinds of problems, and you can beat the game just using that as a true like edge runner or net runner. At the same time, I must say that when you invest a lot of resources, your experience points into hacking, in this game it becomes OP very quickly, and it also becomes very repetitive, and the game becomes super boring. Up to you, but I would try different approaches and different things in this game. One of these approaches definitely would be shooting or gunfights, and I was concerned when I've seen the trailers of this game that the gunfights will be terrible. They actually said something like if you are fighting somebody who is way above you in terms of their level, you are doomed to lose in this kind of gunfight. And I was afraid that they will not be able to find a way to merge the character building, the RPG elements, and the proper shooting mechanics. Actually, they managed to do it really well, and I enjoyed this part for the most of the game. At the same time, I was surprised that they didn't manage to create melee weapons well and to realize the fistfight mechanics or any kind of close combat encounters. These are quite mediocre to say the least, and there were quite a few brawling matches or like boxing matches in the game that I didn't enjoy at all, just because, I don't know, you just don't feel like doing this in this game. Like shooting is awesome, hacking is cool, fist fights are pretty bad. And of course this game has driving, which was done in an absolutely ridiculous way. I must say that most of the vehicles in this game are undrivable. They drift all the time, and you cannot really drive any vehicle in a more or less like reasonable fashion. As a matter of fact, I tried to make some videos with me driving, but I couldn't, because in most of the videos within like 10-15 seconds I drive into a crowd of pedestrians or hit the wall, and it doesn't look good. The only vehicles that are more or less okay are motorcycles. Actually, I just recalled that in my first impressions video I said that I hope that they will not have a series of side quests related to racing, but obviously they had them, and surprisingly they were not very difficult to beat. They picked a very reasonable vehicle there, and it was not really about racing. There was like a story attached to this racing side quest, and I was surprised, but I was able to complete this series of side quests with ease. But I cannot say the same about fist fights. I was not able to complete this part at all, because you have to invest a lot of skills and experience points into development of your body, whereas I was more into hacking and crafting. And speaking of crafting, crafting is the 21st century alchemy from The Witcher. So in The Witcher you had to create potions and to work on your equipment in order to beat the game on the hardest levels of difficulty. The same applies here to Cyberpunk 2077. You have to invest into crafting in order to craft stuff. The skill is made in a very proper way, in my opinion, but it gets so repetitive and so boring that I literally refused to invest any time into developing this skill. I actually invested lots of skill points and experience, but at a certain point I realized that I don't want to click like several hundred times to create certain components in order to create certain things. It is okay. It's just not that interesting. I'm here for the story, not for this kind of repetitive stuff. And speaking of the storyline and the RPG elements of this game, I think that one of the most important things that are associated with role-playing games is character creation. In this game it's realized in a decent way. I was not particularly impressed. I tried to create a character that would look like myself, and the guy looked pretty ugly, and I had to play with him throughout the game. But at the end of the day I must say that since the developers decided to create a first-person only view game, I don't think there is any point in creating any kind of special character for this game just because you won't see yourself. Actually, there is a joke that, you know, the most important thing in this game is your fingernail polish. You have to pick the color, and it's the most important part because you will see it every time you will manipulate things with your hands in the game. For the rest of the game, the only moments when you could see your character were mirrors, which are actually realized in a very odd way. You can only see yourself in the mirror if you activate a mirror. So I think it's some sort of a crutch that game is trying to hide some sort of a technical bugs there, and that is why you cannot really see yourself in the mirror. There was actually one mirror in one of the elevators when you were doing a side quest for Goro Takemura, and in this mirror you could not see yourself. You were like a vampire there, and Goro was only partially rendered in this mirror. Also, you can see yourself when you're riding a motorcycle and in infrequent cutscenes of romances, and that's pretty much it. Surprisingly, you cannot modify yourself in the game. I'm pretty sure they will add it later, like they did with The Witcher 3, when you could add different hairstyles. In this game, I would expect different mods, different tattoos, things like that. Just pure aesthetic parts. The same applies to the vehicles. You cannot modify them either. Again, it's not GTA, it's not Need for Speed, but still, in the world where everything is modifiable, you would expect that these things could be modified. Actually, speaking of the cars, you can actually see them from the side, because driving them with like the camera being from the driver's seat is just merely or purely impossible. So you would want to have the third person kind of viewpoint when you are driving vehicles, and the game actually allows for that, and that's why I don't understand why they couldn't make third person view when you are fist fighting or doing something like this possible. But given that you can take a look at yourself when you are driving a car or a motorcycle, I would make it possible to modify your cars. And finally, we can talk about this story. The story turned out to be very short, and there were actually two things that they promised to us. First of all, verticality, and second, non-linearity. When I'm talking about the verticality part, I mean that they said that the world of the game will be smaller than the world of The Witcher 3, so the map itself will be smaller, but since it's a vertical city, there are lots of skyscrapers, buildings, there'll be lots of floors here and there, the game will be much denser. It turns out that there are indeed quite a few skyscrapers, but you can only access some of them, and you can only access some floors. And it usually happens when the game allows you to. So if there is a side quest and you have to access the penthouse, then for a certain period of time you'll be able to access this penthouse. You will go to the elevator, which is getting really boring because the elevator goes up for a while. You ride the elevator up, you do your thing, then you go out, and in many cases you cannot even return. So there is not much of the verticality, and that's a little bit of a letdown, but also let's talk about the non-linearity. The main storyline is a freaking line, just straight line with very slight deviations. Yes, there are 3 life paths that you can choose from, but the impact of this life path is just really minimal. I played as a corpo, and the whole corpo life path was just one mission, if you can call it a mission, which is just you're just receiving a task. You talk to Jackie, you meet with him in afterlife, you have like a little bit of a chat, and then certain things happen, and they take you directly to the prologue montage, which is also a very annoying thing because, as you know, and spoiler alert, Jackie dies in the very beginning of the game, but they do not give you a chance to establish some sort of a connection with Jackie. They have a montage of you completing some missions with Jackie, and then you got the main mission and he dies. Well, you got 2 missions, but my point is that the interaction with Jackie is very short. And most importantly, this choice of life path is the illusion of choice because they do not affect your gameplay much. You might get an extra line of dialogue here and there. And speaking of dialogues, they do not change much. With rare exceptions, it doesn't really matter what you say there. This game has its own story that goes with or without you. And finally, in the end of the game, you've got several endings, and I don't want to spoil, but at the end of the game, you will be given a choice of one of 3 or 4 endings. Actually, I'm saying one of 3 or 4 endings because you've got one choice of ending your life. You've got 3 main choices, which will branch out a little bit as you go through them. And there is also a secret ending, and in order to unlock it, you would have to make very specific dialogue choices in one specific mission, and you cannot really have the secret ending unless you know about it. I don't think it's realistic. In order to unlock it, you would have to make the specific choices, and then you would have to wait and not answer the question what you would like to do next in some final missions. And after 5 minutes of doing nothing, which is a very unrealistic thing for a modern gamer, Johnny will offer you a suicide mission quest, and that's the secret ending, which turns out to be almost identical to one of the standard endings. So my point and my impression here is that the game is absolutely linear, and the non-linearity that we expected after playing The Witcher 3 is just ridiculous because it is nothing in comparison to the previous masterpieces that they have made. Nevertheless, I do believe that the game is quite interesting. It does offer you quite a few side quests. Speaking of side quests, they have, I don't know, hundreds of side quests that get very boring and repetitive, but there are some gems there that are absolutely stunning. I like how they play with the cyberpunk lore. I like how they play with transhumanism ideas. The game has lots of artificial intelligence, and there are quite a few entities that you cannot even tell whether they are human beings or not, and where is the line demarcating humans from AIs and other entities there. Just to give you a couple of cool examples, they have a mission when you are supposed to engage in a fist fight with a guy who turns out to be 2 bodies, and I mean literally 2 bodies. There are 2 bodies, there are 2 twins who merge their psyches into one, so now they're literally one guy with 2 bodies, and you have to fight them. And it's actually a very interesting concept because I believe that in 50 years or 70 years from now, it will be possible to do something like that. Or there is a series of side quests that you can complete for a taxicab company that is owned and operated by an artificial intelligence, Delamain, and this artificial intelligence, first of all, it struggles with its own identity, whether it's an illegal alien, whether it's a human or not, and there are some legalities involved, but also at a certain point it develops to such a level that its subsidiaries, different cars, they develop their own psyches or consciousness, and they all develop some sort of mental illnesses, and effectively the game makes you a psychotherapist for a bunch of cars. And for me, being a psychiatrist, I think it's a very interesting concept, and it is a very interesting mission. Or you can find a firearm, Skippy, that has artificial intelligence, and this artificial intelligence actually looks pretty much like Clippy from Microsoft, and it acts in a very similar way. It has the mind of its own, and it does whatever it wants. It talks to you, it sings, it hums, it shoots sometimes without you pressing a trigger, and it's just an interesting parallel gem in this transhumanistic cyberpunk world. And finally, this game has some romantic involvements, and I'm not a big fan of this aspect of this kind of games because plenty of opportunities in real life, and I'm not playing this game to romance some bunch of pixels, but they have one storyline there with Panam that ends or has the romance option that is quite unusual and unexpected. It happens in a hover tank, and the way you connect with the NPC, with Panam, is very unexpected and very transhumanistic and very brilliantly realized, if you ask. I don't want to spoil. If you play the game, I highly advise to go this route and to try to romance Panam to see what happens. Let us return to the main storyline. I said that I did not appreciate much that this game was so short, but at the same time the whole story is quite beautiful. It's literally breathtaking. They have this idea of another person's mind merging with yours in the same brain. And they have Keanu Reeves, who portrays Johnny Silverhand, who is like a war veteran, who has this bad reputation, who's very cynical, but he's very smart and he's a true rock star. And I truly enjoyed every bit of dialogue I had with this character and his remarks and comments while you were completing the main storyline quest. Having said that, I just realized that one of the most important things about role-playing games is replayability. That is a good indicator of a variety of options that you can have in a game, and you have a chance to complete it in one way or another, and a really good game has a lot of replayability to it. You can play it in different ways, and it is very interesting how it will end. I do not see any replayability with this game, to be honest. I do not think that I will try to complete this game again, to beat it again in the next month, actually, just because I went through the main storyline. There will be no more surprises in the future, and the way you choose the path and the way you choose the ending pretty much let me replay different endings quickly, and I don't have any desire to play the game from the very beginning to the end again, especially given there are some glitches and bugs, and definitely there will be some improvements, so likely I will play this game again in a year or so when they roll out some DLCs and fix all the glitches and the bugs, and then you will be able to enjoy it again. And speaking of that, I've got a couple of ideas that most likely nobody will care about, but I'll still use this video as an opportunity to express them. First of all, I think that they should fix all the bugs and glitches, and I have no doubts that they will fix them. It will be done. It's already been done. Now we're at the patch 1.06 that fixed quite a few problems. There still are some glitches, but definitely they will be addressed in the next several weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. The serious conceptual item is the beginning of the game. I believe that they should expand the life path. So instead of having like half a mission for each life path, you should have 2-3 missions when you can play as your character and actually get a feel of different life path. And then instead of having this stupid montage with Jackie, you should have several missions which you complete with Jackie, and these missions should have different flavor depending on your chosen life path. That will allow for establishing good rapport with Jackie and getting an emotional connection with him, so that when the time comes, the emotional impact of his death and the mission gets more immersive and more true to the lore of the game. The next thing is the AI of the NPCs. It has to be reworked. Police, pedestrians, it's just ridiculous. You cannot pass by a police officer without raising an alarm, and they will attack you. And the way they appear, those who played the game, they know it's just ridiculous. You know, you are not doing anything bad. Then you are getting attacked by a police officer, you shoot back, then you got several stars, and immediately there are like lots of police officers teleporting on you, and there is no way out of that other than just driving away very quickly, and then the whole situation resolves within 5-7 seconds, and you can drive back and everything will be back to normal. I don't think it makes any sense conceptually, so I would suggest that they either remove police officers or restrict their actions, or they should rework their AI completely. Okay, the next suggestion is reworking the mechanics of melee weapons and fist fights. It's a huge task, but I think it's important to let people fight. Maybe they should allow the third-person view in fist fights, because the way it's realized just doesn't feel right, and it's a very odd experience. I didn't enjoy it at all. Maybe in general they should allow for third-person view. I don't see any problem with that. Technologically, it's possible to realize, and the game has everything. All they have to do is just move camera to the side, to the third-person view, and tweak a little bit of things here and there so the game would work. And actually they already have third-person view when you're driving vehicles, so I don't see any reason why not allowing for that. Definitely will create more opportunities for glitches and bugs and some discrepancies, but they can address it. I'm pretty sure that it's possible. In any case, there will be some modders who will make it happen, and it will be a shame that modders did better job than the developers. Obviously, I would recommend fixing the vehicle mechanics as well as adding some character modification options post creation. So during the game you can go to hairdresser, you could change your haircut, you can do some tattoos and so on. So something like that happened with The Witcher 3, and I'm pretty sure they will make it happen with this game too. And the last but not the least, it's not even a suggestion, I'm pretty sure that they will roll out quite a few DLCs and they will bank on this universe. They'll create more immersive, cool stories that will complement the main storyline, and I'm looking forward to that. As I said, I played the game, I completed it very quickly. It was way less than 100 hours, and quite frankly, in the past 3 weeks, I just realized it took me less than 3 weeks to complete this game while going to work, having some on-call shifts. Actually, I just realized that on top of my regular work hours, I also managed to find a new place, organize everything, get a mortgage, and move into this new place while managing to complete this game in just like remaining couple of hours a day that I had. So you can see that the storyline is quite short, but in any case, there are lots of things that they can fix, and I'm pretty sure they will fix. There are lots of things that they can add, and I'm pretty sure that there will be exciting new DLCs released very soon. They actually announced one already, and I'm looking forward to that. So I will not play this game in the next several months because I've got quite a few New Year's resolutions to make and quite a few things to accomplish. And I'm happy that I can wrap up this video in the end of this year without spilling over into 2021. And speaking of 2021, I would like to wish you a happy new year. I know that this past year, 2020, was the weirdest year ever. Personally, I had quite a few things happening, good and bad. I had quite a few developments. I had quite a few commitments made and not fully fulfilled. And I'm not even sorry about that. It's just like lots of things that happened. And I hope to accomplish lots of things the next year. And I would like to wish you a happy new year. And I hope that this new year will bring new hope, new achievements, new resolutions that you'll be able to fulfill. Quite frankly, I would like to raise a toast, but I cannot because I'm on call tomorrow for the whole 24 hours and I literally cannot consume any alcohol right now. So I will raise a virtual toast to the new year, to the new beginnings, to new hopes. Happy New Year, my friends.